4, 3, 2, 1.
Studio Classroom is recording. Please stand by. Studio Classroom is on the air.
Hello friends and welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. My name is Anne-Marie and I think today is a great day to learn something new.
So let's do that together. My name is Gabe and I have a little question for you, Anne-Marie.
Okay, what's the question?
It has to do with weeds.
Weeds.
Yeah, weeds. You know those plants that grow up in a garden or a field, but you don't want them. They're not flowers. They're not the plants that you want. Have you ever had to weed a garden?
Oh my goodness. Weeding the garden was one of my chores growing up. We had a huge vegetable garden on my parents' property, and we grew all kinds of things. Potatoes and peas, carrots, all different kinds of vegetables. And I still remember in the hot, hot summer having to go out and weed the garden.
Every day in the hot summer?
I think we did it a couple days a week. It depended on how much rain we had because that affects how many weeds grow and how fast they grow.
That's still a lot though, a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the summer, that doesn't sound very pleasant. Do you remember how you did that? Like when I've only done weeding a few times. I remember my mom telling me I had to try to get the weed by the roots.
Yes, you want to get the weed by the root. And when we weeded the garden, we always did it by hand.
Well, there are different ways to get rid of weeds. Some ways are better than others. The name of our lesson today is A Better Way to Get Rid of Weeds. So open up those magazines, friends, and let's get started with the first reading for the day.
A better way to get rid of weeds. You can have a beautiful garden without damaging the environment. Gardens are some of the most beautiful places on Earth. The sad reality of gardening is that weeds compete with the plants you want and take away from their beauty. As a result, weed control seems to be a never-ending part of sustaining the beauty of a garden. Most people try to find a quick and easy solution to the problem of weeds by using chemical weed killers, known as herbicides. Sometimes, though, a solution can cause even bigger problems. So what big problems can chemical herbicides cause? Actually, using them can have quite a few unintended consequences.
Hello everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 我们先来看 take away from something 这个片语动词，在课文里的意思是降低或减弱。譬如 The old car sitting in the yard takes away from the house's beauty. 院子里的旧车让这栋原本美丽的房子大打折扣。或者是 The ugly sofa completely takes away from the loveliness of the room. 这张难看的沙发让这个房间完全不漂亮了。再举一个例句 The little girl's dirty face and clothes do not take away from how smart she is. 小女孩肮脏的脸孔和衣服完全无损她的聪明。接着来看 sustain 这个动词，意思是维持或供养。譬如 Because it is not rich enough, the soil cannot sustain the people living in the area. 因为这个土壤不够肥沃，所以无法供养这个地区的居民。Sustain 也有是持续的意思。譬如 The boring story did not sustain the children's interest. 这个无聊的故事呢，无法让孩子保持兴趣。此外 ，sustain 也有经历和遭受破坏的意思。譬如 The village sustained a lot of damage during the typhoon. 这个村庄在台风期间遭受了严重的灾害。Okay, let's get back to our teachers.
Thank you so much, Jack. All right, friends, let's get right into our lesson talking about a better way to get rid of weeds. We read here, you can have a beautiful garden without damaging the environment.
Yeah, and we could talk about a better way to do lots of different things in life, right? Perhaps you have some steady habits and you're just doing them because you've gotten used to doing it that way, but perhaps there's a better way to study for a test than what you've been doing. A better way to practice for something, right? And we're talking about a better way to get rid of weeds. You don't want to damage the environment. Now, this has been a big issue over the last several decades, right?
Yeah, it sure has.
The things that people have done to contribute to damaging the environment.
That's right. And we're going to find out how that ties into our lesson today and what things actually damage the environment when it comes to weeds. But we read here, gardens are some of the most beautiful places on earth. The sad reality of gardening is that weeds compete with the plants you want. Okay, so let's talk about that phrase, the sad reality. If something is a sad reality, what does that mean?
Yeah, that means this is real, it's a fact, but it's something that might make you sad. It's something that you don't really want to talk about or maybe even acknowledge. But we do need to acknowledge it, and that's when we would use this phrase, because we want to remind people of something that is sad that we should do something about. So it is a sad reality.
That's right. And we read here in our next sentence, as a result, weed control seems to be a never-ending part of gardening. Okay, so as a result, that means because of what was stated in the previous sentence, which was weeds compete with the plants you want, the thing in the second sentence is true. So the thing that is true is that weed control seems to be never ending.
That's right. Now, as a result can actually be used in a lot of different ways, right? Because if something happens, it might cause something else to happen. There was a lot of traffic on the way to work this morning. As a result, the meeting had to get pushed back a little bit. Think of another way to use that phrase. But yeah, we do see the word here, never ending. This is a fun way to talk about something that doesn't have an end, or it seems to not stop ever. It goes on and on and on.
Have you ever been part of a class and the homework for that class seemed to be never ending?
Yeah, it's like you finish your homework assignment, but even though you know you just finished your assignment, you know there's something else that you have to do. And then after you finish that one, there's something else you have to do. It seems like it's never ending.
That's right. And the key word here in this example is seems like. The homework isn't actually never ending.
Hopefully.
It will end some point, maybe at least when you graduate or something.
That's true.
But it's kind of used in an exaggerated way here. But we are talking about weeds. Most people try to find a quick and easy solution to the problem of weeds, and they do that by using chemical weed killers, and there is a special word for these, herbicides, and that is going to be one of our key points in our lesson the next 2 days.
That's right, herbicides. Now, as Americans, we do say herbicides. However, if you're talking to someone from the UK, you might hear the H sound at the beginning of that word, herbicide, right? Both are fine. So when they're talking about herbs, well, when we're talking about herbs, we don't have that H sound. However, when you're talking to someone from that part of the world, or maybe in Australia, they might pronounce that H. Herbs. Herbs. Do you use herbicides, Anne-Marie?
I don't remember if we did or not in the garden I had growing up. Maybe we did use some weed killer, but not to this extent like we see in the picture here where this guy is really spraying the weeds down with the herbicide.
Yeah, there's a related word, and that is insecticide. That is something that we use to get rid of insects. Our lesson's talking about herbicides, but both of them have the potential to do a lot of damage to the environment. They could actually have quite a few unintended consequences. And an unintended consequence is something that you didn't plan for. Maybe you didn't even think about the possibility that something could happen For example, there are a lot of seatbelt laws, right? It's important to buckle your seatbelt, but actually seatbelt laws can have unintended consequences. There have been actually more accidents, maybe because people think that they're safe and so they drive a little faster.
Oh, I see. Oh, that is definitely an unintended consequence. Well, we have more to learn about in just a little bit, but right now let's go to today's Info Cloud. Hi friends, and welcome to Info Cloud. Now, Rex, have you seen Tom lately?
No, he's in the weeds. His roof was leaking last week. Then his wife got sick, and then his mother-in-law passed away.
Oh, dear, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Well, I hope that things get better for him soon. But why don't we talk about that phrase, in the weeds?
The phrase in the weeds or deep in the weeds means to be overwhelmed with many problems or difficulties.
We can say the project has been in the weeds for months. The boss might shut it down.
Yes, in the weeds also has another meaning when it is used to describe a restaurant staff. We can use this term to describe restaurant staff who are overwhelmed with taking diners' orders and are unable to keep up the pace.
For example, 2 servers called in sick Sunday night, so Sam was in the weeds most of the night as his restaurant was packed.
Whether we are talking about restaurant staff or just people in general, if you are in the weeds, you are overwhelmed.
Well, friends, we hope you find a path forward next time you find yourself in the weeds.
当你在一件事情上面面对很多问题和挑战，或许可以用今天分享的用语 in the weeds 来形容这种状况。Weeds 是野草或杂草。In the weeds 字面上就是在野草堆中。在日常生活里 ，in the weeds 可以代表陷入许多的困难当中。The project has been in the weeds for months。过去几个月，这个专案计划在一个困难重重的僵局当中。如果在餐厅里面 ，in the weeds 就可以代表服务生同一个时间要服务太多客人，完全忙不过来。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 我们下次云端见。
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Welcome back to Studio Classroom. Okay, here's a little quiz for you to see how much you were paying attention to our previous section. We learned a word or a phrase that means it doesn't stop. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. Something that doesn't end.
Yes, that's part of the word.
Never ending.
Never ending. Great job, Anne-Marie.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you got that as well, friends. As a result, weed control seems to be a never-ending part of sustaining the beauty of a garden. Okay, well, let's continue learning about weed control and how to get rid of weeds right now.
A better way to get rid of weeds. As you might imagine, these toxic chemicals contaminate the environment. They effectively kill weeds, yes, but they can also kill other desirable plants and species such as earthworms, butterflies, frogs, and even birds. Not only that, but herbicides pose significant health risks to humans, ranging from irritating your skin to even poisoning you. Water drainage, as a result of rain or watering methods, contains herbicides that can kill fish and other aquatic life and can poison our water supply. And did you know that repeated use of herbicides can make weeds resistant to their effects? But herbicide use isn't the only way to get rid of weeds.
好的，接下来来看 contaminate 这个动词，意思是污染。譬如 The factory contaminated the local drinking water by dumping chemicals into a nearby lake. 这个工厂把含有化学物质的废水排放到附近的湖里，污染了当地的饮用水。或者是 Japan's Fukushima area was contaminated when its nuclear power plant was affected by flood waters. 日本福岛核电厂被洪水侵袭后，该地区受到了污染。Contaminate 的名词是 contamination， 譬如 The chemicals have caused serious contamination in the region's lakes. 这些化学物质已经对这个地区的湖泊造成了严重的污染。最后来看 resistant 这个形容词，意思是对什么有抵抗力的，或者是抗拒的。譬如 The virus is resistant to any medicine. 这个病毒对任何药物都有抗拒性。或者是When Rob saw that his manager was resistant to any changes in the way things were done, he found a different job. 当 Rob 看到他的经理拒绝改变做事的方式后，他就换工作了。另外 water resistant 就是指防水的。例如 My watch is water resistant, so it wasn't harmed when I dropped it in the bathtub. 我的手表是防水的，所以掉进浴缸里也不会坏掉。All right, let's get back to our teachers.
Thank you so much, Jack. All right, let's get right back into our lesson. We read, as you might imagine, these toxic chemicals contaminate the environment. So by toxic chemicals, we are talking about the herbicides we learned about in the first section. There's a phrase here that we want to talk about before we move on, and that is the phrase, as you might imagine.
That's right, because earlier we were talking about some of these things having unintended consequences. And so when we use the phrase, as you might imagine, we're talking about something that someone probably is thinking about when we're talking about this issue or this topic. So you're going to share a fact that they probably already know.
Yeah, here's an example. As you might imagine, the students were really excited to be done with their midterms. That has the idea that, of course, students would be ready to be done with their midterms. Most students don't like tests, so that's probably something the other person was already thinking about or could easily imagine.
Yeah, and something about this phrase is that we rarely start a talk or an idea with this phrase, right? You're talking about something. So perhaps with Anne-Marie's example, we're talking about the fact that summer is coming up.
Right.
And then you would say, as you might imagine, students are excited to be done with their tests. Think of another situation where you could use this phrase. Maybe you can write a story or something like that and incorporate this phrase. Well, as you might imagine, these toxic chemicals contaminate the environment. I just got to say something about this picture real quick, Anne-Marie.
Okay.
It looks like that is a dandelion right in the middle of this picture.
I think you're right.
He's using an herbicide to kill the dandelion.
Yes.
I like dandelions.
I do too. I like to eat their greens in salads, and I like how they're so yellow and bright and cheerful.
You can eat dandelions?
You can eat the leaves, yes.
I was just thinking about the fact that they're bright and cheerful, and you can, pick one up and blow all the little seeds away.
Make a wish.
You make a wish, right?
Yeah.
The sad reality is dandelions are weeds.
Oh. Maybe it depends on who you ask.
It depends on who you ask. Well, maybe some people don't mind having them in their gardens or in their front yards, right? Well, anyway, they effectively kill weeds, so these herbicides kill weeds, yes, but they can also kill other desirable plants and species such as earthworms, butterflies, frogs, and even birds. Now you see that word yes right in the middle of that sentence. It's like it's answering a question that we might have. The question we might have is, well, don't they kill weeds? And the answer is, well, yes, they kill weeds. Yes, but, and then there's something else that it does.
That's right. And we read on here, not only that, but herbicides pose significant health risks to humans. Now, this is a really great sentence pattern for you to know, friends, to pose a risk or to pose a threat to something.
That's right. I often hear the phrase to pose a threat. That poses a threat. For example, invasive species pose a threat to the local species of a place. Can you think of anything else that might pose a threat to somebody or something?
Well, we are learning more here in this lesson about different things that herbicides do to harm the environment. Herbicides can kill fish and other aquatic life. They can also poison our water supply.
Okay, we have a better way to kill weeds. We're going to learn about that next time. However, we are kind of talking about gardens, and there's a great place where you can visit gardens. It is in Kyoto. Let's enjoy a conversation with our All About right now.
How was Kyoto? Did you see the fall foliage you were hoping to see?
Yes, it was incredible and a feast for the eyes. The gardens were filled with red, yellow, and orange maple trees.
Nice! Was it your first time to see leaves change color?
Yes, coming from a tropical country, I'd never experienced fall foliage before.
It must have been spectacular. When is the best time to visit Kyoto to see the foliage?
The fall foliage lasts for 2 months, from mid-October to mid-December, but the peak is around mid-November.
Maybe I'll fly to Kyoto next November.
You should. The fall colors there were one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen.
Foliage. Foliage. Maple tree. Maple tree.
Tropical. Tropical. Peak. Peak.
Well, I'm sure they do a pretty good job of weeding those gardens in Kyoto. Now, our lesson mentioned a couple of times the idea of things being bad for the environment. We learned about things that were toxic or poisonous. But when I saw that word toxic, it made me think of a related word, Anne-Marie.
Okay.
Yeah, detox.
Oh, a detox.
Yeah, a detox is when you are getting rid of toxins in your body. You're doing something to get rid of those poisonous things from your body. Have you ever done a detox before?
Actually, I have. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was having some health issues, so I decided to do an anti-inflammatory detox.
Those are big words.
Those are big words.
Anti-inflammatory, yeah.
Yeah, if something is anti-inflammatory, it means that it reduces swelling in your body, or it doesn't let things that cause your body to retain water or swell up or your cells to multiply. It gets rid of those kind of things from your diet.
Yeah, was that a pleasant experience, or tell me a little more about it?
Well, I felt great when the detox was over, and I did the detox for about 4 or 5 months. But the first 2 weeks of that detox were really rough.
Okay, yeah, I imagine when you first start doing something like that, when you're just getting into it, it's probably the toughest part, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of headaches, and I felt really uncomfortable and weak for a while. But once I got through that period, I felt so much better.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's how it is with a lot of things in life, right? Maybe if you have an addiction to something and then you want to slowly get away from that addiction, it can be the hardest at first to try to do that. You will have withdrawal symptoms. That's just what your detox experience made me think of.
It is a pretty good picture of life too, I think, as well. Well, friends, we have more to talk about when it comes to weeds tomorrow, so make sure you come back and join us. We'll see you here on Studio Classroom.
Yours at all times, a good friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.